What's up, everybody? This is Carson from Operation Recall. I just did a bunch of interactions with the factory, and so I wanted to give you guys a quick update. Last time that I updated you guys, we had these two beautiful working models. That's Mazumu Core right there, and there is General Mortifero. And so basically, what I did was give them a bunch of feedback, and we went in and did some continued revision. One of the things we did to Mortifero, for example, was add straps to the boots to match the card art that Doug Hart has completed for us. It's a detail that we thought looked really cool. Last time you saw us, we were prototyping those two figures and giving all kinds of feedback for it, looking at the scale compared to classic Real American Hero, compared to Rooster from Delta 17. We're working with the same factory that created Delta 17, as I've mentioned before, and we expect these figures to be fully compatible with those in terms of swapping parts and that kind of thing. This is just a little peek behind the scenes at some of the stuff that we're creating to help guide the factory, to help explain how these things should function. That is kind of redundant with what I updated you guys last time. So let's dig in on some stuff that's not redundant. These are basically like the final CAD renderings for Breacher and Hellhound. And I'm going to review four figures with you guys today. I'll try to move through here quickly. But this is where you go through and you look at the full resolution renders at the one-to-one scale, and you double check everything to make sure it looks really good. I wanted to mention Operation Recall has picked up two more guys that are former Hasbro guys, so kind of in that theme of Operation Recall, bringing back these guys to to continue service to create awesome action figures for us. And so Carter is amazing. You can find him on Instagram under Carter the Conqueror, but he's gone in and he's taken the original. This was a Bill Merkline body and a Mike Good head, and he has gone in and revised these to do things just add incredible details. Look at the hat. You see the little creases in the hat as it goes around. I believe that's an addition from James. More impactful stuff like the shoulder armor and the collar on the t-shirt, moving the torso out over the shoulders a bit more, so you get that nice kind of seated appearance for the arms going into the torso. All these details, Carter has done a tremendous amount of work on these. Like he added the scarring on the forearm armor, like he's been hit with blades a couple times. These are the actual 40 millimeter grenade rounds that go into that grenade launcher. So making sure those match and are scaled appropriately. All new smoke canisters on the legs there. The boots have been significantly tweaked. Like, look at the level of detail on the bottom of these boots, man. They look incredible. These are O-ring figures, but these are a little more detailed than maybe 1980s O-ring figures. And the sculpt work is just incredible on these. So thank you to Carter for those. You've just been doing amazing work. I've just kicked off the Wave 2 sculpture revisions with him as well. And so we've got four figures that the sculpts are completed on, and we got four figures that are in the revision phases right now. And yeah, this guy just looks great. I don't think there was anything that I caught on Breacher, but there will be some of the later CAD documents that I show you. You'll see some markup, but I don't think there was anything that I caught on here that I wanted to fix. One thing I thought was interesting, the factory has cut the hat off as an entirely different piece. So I'm thinking it would be cool to sculpt hair on the top of his head and then have a helmet that you could put on top of the head, perhaps for a later release. So that way you would still be able to use the mold for the head, but you'd replace that hat sculpt with a hair sculpt, and then he'd be able to be a helmeted figure as well. If you remember, we were originally going to do him helmeted, but I love the personality, the backwards hat with the hair sticking out, and he's from Texas, so he's got a Longhorn kind of icon on there, not to be confused with any of the Texas teams, just a generic Longhorn. He actually worked at a Texas SWAT department before joining up with the Atlas team, and so that's why he has that ball cap. Just a little bit of world building, a little bit of story in there. We're thinking through all that stuff. So this is the revised Hellhound, and he looks incredible. Bill Merkline gave us an amazing dog to start with, but Carter has gone in there and just cleaned up all the details. This medical pack is amazing, all the pouches, of course. And then you got four more of those 40 millimeter grenade rounds that would fit with that China Lake grenade launcher. So stuff like that. And then on the opposite side, we've got shotgun shells that work with the bullpup I'm trying to not say Keltec anymore, man, because we can't say actual brand names and we're not putting those on the packaging for fear of retribution from those companies. And so we will not be doing much of that, but we do have some pretty cool names for them. I think you guys will enjoy it. But there's 12 gauge shotgun rounds right there on Hellhound, and he looks just incredible. The bullpup shotgun and the grenade launcher have not been modified very much at all. So that's a look at the revised CAD images for all these. So basically, these hand sculpted figures get scanned, and then there's an intense amount of work that goes into them after that where they get refined. And so thank you to Carter for that work. All right, let's go back to the Finder. Now, that's the last thing I'm going to show you is all four of them together. So this is Breacher and Hellhound, and this is what you would call just like a scale reference. And so what I've created for the factory is this image over here on the right. That's using the original Paint Master, and then it's showing all the scales and proportions, shrinking down the heads a little bit, moving the torsos out over the shoulders a little bit, kind of making those corrections using the Paint Masters. So we do those. And then the factory sent me back all of this, and it shows all the final scales for the figure stands, the various accessories, the dog, all that kind of stuff. And so that's approved. And then we'll go back to the Finder. All right, so for the next figure, we have Dark Reapers, and I don't think I found any revisions on this guy as well. This shows you the scale of Dark Reapers along with his accessories. This pistol right here actually plugs into his right leg, so that'll be cool. He'll have two pistols and a giant Reaper. Polybolos is the weapons manufacturer that came up with the Cerebus, and this is a modular assault weapon. And then we have a big pistol sidearm, and we have the other pistol that goes into his hip right there. We also have our really cool Orthrus figure stand here. That's going to come with each Orthrus figure. All right, and let's go back to the Finder. And here's the CAD image for Dark Reapers. Again, this is another figure that was sculpted by Bill Merkline and polished by Carter the Conqueror. And you'll see that kind of iconic Orthrus armor on his chest. That's probably the most identifiable piece, second only to that amazing helmet. And so this is, I should have mentioned, Breacher and Hellhound were designed by Mark Pennington, and Dark Reapers was designed by Ron Rudat. So props to those guys. And then Carter's gone in here and he's added, things like boot textures and revised the knives and the knee pads. And these shin pads are actually used for climbing walls. So that's why you have those little spikes there. That's a real world accessory that I thought was really cool. Carter's cleaned up all the web gear, the boots, the straps. I mean, just an insane level of detail. This is weeks of work going back and forth. I think we did 3 or 4 rounds of revisions on this guy in particular. Again, widening those shoulders out so they come out over the rivets right there, like they should be, and just putting in those kinds of details and just cleaning up stuff in general. And then you get close-ups on all the legs, of course. And this is a giant PDF. That's why it takes a little while. These are flashbang grenades that plug in on his arm. And I believe those are going to be pegged in, if I remember correctly. And so when we do the Dark Reaper's officer, we might peg in kind of a different accessory there. But the original design called for flashbangs, and so that's what we have there. And on the opposite arm, there's kind of armor, forearm armor, similar to Breacher's. Very detailed gloves, like those are details that Carter added, and they're just amazing. So yeah, this is the significantly tweaked head sculpt that Carter came up with, which looks just awesome. And so I could not be happier with the level of detail that's been being put in to these products at all levels of the production. All right, so then we'll go back to the Finder. All right, the third figure is Mazumu Core, and I did find some markup there, so we'll grab that. And then I believe this is the other one, so let's crack those open. First is the scale reference for Mazumu Core. We're going to have a flexible belt that comes around, it connects to the gun, and then it also connects to the backpack. And so that's going to kind of wrap around. He's going to be right-handed, and the belt will wrap around to the backpack kind of under that left arm right there. I believe that's how that's going to be sitting. And he's got his big gun with his bipod, and we've got his Orthrus figure stand, of course. We got his backpack. This piece attaches to the backpack, and then that holds the machete in. So that explains those parts. But this is just a scale reference to make sure everything's scaled properly. This is a 1-to-1 scale. And we'll close that out as well. And then we'll go to this giant CAD image. Now, an interesting thing about this character, I think we came up with this in that brainstorming session that I had with Kirk Bazigian, Ron Rudat, and Mark Pennington. And Mark was very excited about this figure. I should mention this was designed by Mark Pennington, of course. And so this is the Jungle Trooper, but it's an army builder. And so we wanted to do something unique for an army builder, which is these are African jungle troopers that use scarification kind of as a rite of passage, right? And so one of the things that we're going to change here is the general trooper, he's going to have more of a balaclava underneath that hard mask here. And so you're not going to have these neck scarification marks because those are the neck scars for the leader figure, which will come later. And so you're not going to see the hair or the scars here. That's too like uniquely identifiable. What you will see is unique scarification patterns on the arms. And so we're coming up with three different scarification patterns on the arms, two that will go with the Mazumu Core and one that will go with the leader figure. They will also have different skin tones on each of these sets of arms. So you'll have three different skin tones and you'll have two generic kind of Mazumu Core troopers, and then you'll have one leader figure. And so that's all the arms, and then you see the machetes and the backpacks and the guns and the bipods. That's what holds the machete to the backpack. And then you have the ammo belt that's going to be made of a soft plastic. So he's just going to be an amazing figure. I'm very excited about him. And then the final figure for Wave 1. And one thing that I mentioned, that we were revising things, this is where I asked for the boot modification to match the artwork that Doug Hart has created for us. So we're getting really in the details, and we're going to get this stuff right. So there you can see all the detail that we added to the boots, and it looks great. So this is the kind of proportions, and everything looks as it should for General Mortifero. He's our first tall figure, so he's going to be about a quarter inch taller than your standard figure. As you can see, it's 4 inches for the figure over here. In real life, he'd be about 6'2". We're basically a 1 to 18.5 scale for this toy line. And so we're being very consistent and thoughtful about that as well. And so here is General Mortifero. And there was something that I caught here. I think it's just a misalignment on the model. The way it's lined up, that seam should be very clean, and it's not right there. You can actually see the R for the underarm there. So I think that's just a misassembly. But yeah, we've got all the details, from the top of the head, having that little spike pattern to the bottom of the boots. And I've just gone through in complete detail and looked at all this and double checked everything. And yeah, there's that one issue with the arm, but nothing major. And back on the Mazumu core, there was just a couple bumps, scarification bumps that were missing. So really just small details at this point. And so that leads us to this overview image, which is Wave 1 all grouped together. These are all at a 1-to-1 scale, so you can see what the line looks like together. The heights are about the same for the first three, as you can see, with the dreadlock knot top on top of the Mazumu core. That'll stick up a little bit, so that'll stick up to about 4 inches, but his height will be closer to 3.75. And as I mentioned with General Mortifero, as always, we have intended for him to be, our first kind of tall, domineering figure. And so he's going to be about a quarter inch taller. And that distribution goes through the thighs and the lower legs, and the torso is a little bit taller. So, we've equally distributed it across the figure so that no limbs look like disproportionate. You can see the three Orthrus stands, and then you can see the one Atlas stand. Breacher's our door kicker, but don't worry, with Wave 2, we've got a lot of Atlas operatives that are coming into play. So he won't be solo here for too long. All right, well, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you enjoy the updates. Thank you for your patience. We've also finished up all the packaging for Waves 1 and 2. So I might as well show you guys that while I'm looking at that. Let's go to figure development, packaging. Yeah, I'm on version 6 of that, and we've just been working on this nonstop. And by we, I mean me and Ed Morrill. So Ed Morrill is the guy that ran packaging from 1969 to 1989, and he's doing all the final edits to the artwork and the composition for the artwork itself. Meanwhile, I'm doing all the layouts for Illustrator in terms of the typography and the logos and the positioning of all the elements. Wave 1, as I just showed you, all those are done. Like, we're close to tooling on those. Wave 2 has been completely scanned, and I've kicked off sculpture revisions with Carter on those. Wave 3 just arrived at the factory, and they're scanning those now. So here's a look at the packaging. I'll just show you this one figure because it's a lot of layers to click on and off. But this is our packaging for Soul Eagle. And as you can see, you've got the Operation Recall logo. You've got the Atlas team icon here. And obviously, when it's an Orthrus figure, that'll be replaced with the Orthrus. You got our brand promise, legendary creators back on active duty. Of course, all the accessories, the figure. These are the Paintmaster prototypes. So shout out to the guys that have worked on those. This one just came in from Matthew LaCroix Troy not too long ago. And the painting obviously comes from Doug Hart, and the explosion background from Ed Morrill, as well as Ed Morrill is doing his final pass on the illustration and positioning for these figures right now. So you can see in the cross sell, we're only missing 3 paintings at this point, and Doug is hard at work on those. So good luck and Godspeed, Doug. And as you can see, here's a quick sneak peek of the package art for all 19 of the Year 1 figures. They're coming along nicely. Thank you guys so much for supporting this project. Please help spread the word. Send people to OperationRecall.com. Have them check out the roll call page where they can see the latest for all 19 figures. And if they get inspired and want to join, they can click on the backer kit on OperationRecall.com. Thank you guys. Take care.